everyone. This is Francois from OnCrawl, and welcome to OnCrawl's SEO in Orbit webinar series, the first ever series sending SEO into space. SEO in Orbit is a series of webinars running from June 24th and taking you on the tour of the galaxy of technical SEO. At the end of the series, we send all of the top tips from each episode into space, and it will occur on June 27th. Today's SEO in Orbit is about Rankbrain, AI, machine learning, and the future of search. We'll take questions at the end of the webinar, so you can ask them at any time in the webinar question box or on Twitter using the hashtag OnCrawlInOrbit. So I'm Francois Goub. I'll be your host for this episode. I'm the founder of technical SEO data platform OnCrawl, and I'm the typical SEO nerd. So I need to say that if I'm doing this job today, it's because of our guest. He has been a source of inspiration for years. So I'm very honored to welcome Bill Slawski to talk about Rankbrain, AI, machine learning, and the future of search. Welcome, Bill.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. And I'm looking forward to going into space.
Yes, I hope you will. So you need to give us one of our top tricks. So Bill is a self-made expert in search engine patterns. He writes about search rankings and algorithms at SEO by the Sea, and he is a director of SEO research for Goldfish Digital, where he helps guide clients on award-winning industry campaigns. Bill is not a scientist or a mathematician. He has an undergraduate degree in English and a Juris Doctor in Law degree. He has been reading patterns from the search engine since like 2005 to learn about what they have to say about searchers and the web. And many of these patterns cover algorithms that aim to address particular problems. And he has found many helpful stuff when it comes to performing SEO. And I know, Bill, that you have helped tons of SEOs out there. So thanks for all what you've done over the years. So we'll start with some definitions because we are addressing particular complex topics. So here are a few of the concepts that will be important for listeners to understand for today's talk. So first question, Bill, what's the difference between AI and machine learning?
That's a good question. There are so many definitions of AI that are circulating through the atmosphere. It's hard to pin it down exactly. A lot of the work at Google focuses upon the use of neural networks, which is one type of thinking about AI and sort of leads towards how machine learning works, in that you have a system of data. You have a sample data set that is your ideal data. You have it marked up in certain ways to stress certain features about it. And you train classifiers based upon that sample data, and then you turn them loose on other sets of data and allow them to try to analyze that additional data based on what they learned from your sample set. That's machine learning in action.
Yeah.
So AI can cover different areas. We're considering things like better understanding natural language is part of AI, and there are a number of techniques that get involved in doing that. I think a lot of the things that we're seeing coming up from Google illustrate what's going on with that. We were talking briefly. I wrote about a patent yesterday where they were saying that they sometimes came across missing facts that they wanted to use in question answering scenarios. And question answering is part of AI. It's where Google will try to use a knowledge graph to understand what an answer might be for a question. If there's information missing about entities or incorrect data, Google might try to estimate an answer, and it might use information involving related facts. One example would be somebody's birth date. They might estimate a birth date based upon the birth date of their spouse, knowing that people who are married tend to be 5 years apart in age. The interesting thing about this patent, though, isn't the fact that they're doing estimations, it's that they're providing explanations for those estimates. So they might look at the age of a spouse, they might look at the age of children, they might also look at a college graduation date.
Yeah.
And those are things that they could use to estimate, and an explanation gives you some ability to say, that sounds about right, or that's probably not right. His wife is 19 years younger than him. His children are 30 years younger than, no, 40 years younger than him.
Yeah. So can we say that AI is about like mimicking, thinking like a human on one hand, and machine learning is training some models, statistical models, or decision trees based on knowledge graph, for instance. So
well, machine learning is based upon AI. It's based upon
the first level.
mimicking human thought the way neurons would. That's why we have neural networks. That's why they're named that, because they look at small features over and over on multiple levels, and they build data based upon that. It's supposed to mimic the way our brains and neural networks work. So machine learning follows the same type of thing, where they look at lots of small levels and build up data.
Okay, thanks for that, Bill. And what is your definition of Rankbrain?
Rankbrain is related to Hummingbird. Hummingbird tried to increase both their query rewriting approaches. Hummingbird tried to understand the context of queries better, looking at all of the words in the query. A lot of times Google in the past, before Hummingbird, they would look at words that were next to each other to understand context better. In Hummingbird, for a conversational query, it might be longer than 2 or 3 words. It might be full sentences. And Hummingbird tried to understand all the words taken together within context to understand the query. Rankbrain uses a word embedding approach, which it can point at a small textual passage and understand if there are certain words that are missing. And it does this by training on large sets of data, maybe 200 billion words at a time. So if you have a query like New York Times puzzle, they might look at that and say, okay, there's a word missing here. It's the word crossword. When somebody looks for a New York Times puzzle, they likely mean the crossword puzzle. So let's add that to our query, and let's give a search of results. That's probably what they want.
Is there anything about the quality of the SERPs regarding Rankbrain?
I've seen a lot of people pointing that out. I've heard Google spokespeople saying you can't optimize pages for Rankbrain. There are SEOs who are writing articles about Rankbrain saying that you can. And I think from everything I've seen about Rankbrain suggests that it's just a query rewriting process. It's not something that optimizes web pages.
And I read on SEO by the Sea that Google had a patent about evaluating the SERPs, and depending on the click-through rates, it might reverse the rankings depending on the behavior of the web users. Do you think that behind what Google can call Rankbrain, there is that type of things?
So when people talk about Google, they often use the word algorithm in the singular form, except it's not just one algorithm. It's lots of algorithms. Rankbrain may just be one of them. So when Google says, okay, there are lots of informational type results for this query, instead of ranking pages on the basis of information retrieval scores and quality or authority, like PageRank, we're going to consider categories, and we're going to give quality scores to results within categories. And that provides more diverse set of results. It makes sure that good quality results get shot up to the top of results because you're looking at things like more popular pages that people tend to go to for navigational type results. They already know that the page is something that they want to see. Mm-hmm. Those tend to rank highly in quality score for categories. They're saying that pages that tend to get selected often in search results are other high quality pages. So those are pages that also would rank highly based on a category quality approach. And yeah, that is a different way, but it's not Rankbrain. It is machine learning.
Yeah, of course. So in your opinion, there is no particular optimization for Rankbrain. So just about how Google may manipulate the queries or understanding your content, right?
It's trying to understand what may be missing in a query, and trying to meet the informational or navigation or situational needs of the searcher. That is the most important thing about Rankbrain. What did this person really mean when they were trying to find whatever they typed in the query box? If we're moving towards spoken queries and contextual, conversational type queries, they're going to have more words than the keyword approach that we used in the past. I mean, it's often, as a searcher, you're trying to guess what are the right words that I need to query with to find the information I need. And you shouldn't need to make those guesses. If you ask for what you want, Google should be able to think about it and say, oh, you probably mean this. And that's what Rankbrain is doing.
Okay, thanks. And in your opinion, what else do we know about how Google uses AI or machine learning to rank results? Currently, what are the main things regarding AI and machine learning within the ability of Google of re-ranking or just ranking the results?
So one of the things we've seen is Google paying more attention to natural language processing. And we're seeing natural language processing approaches appear. And you may address this, but I'm going to cut you off at the pass. Danny Sullivan tweeted a bit about something he called neural matching, which he said was better understanding the words on pages and the meanings of those words within context. And he provided some examples of where one word might mean 3 or 4 different things based upon how it was positioned within a sentence. And Google's been releasing patents about using a word embedding type approach like they use in Rankbrain to better understand those short textual queries for longer amounts of text, for web pages, and understand the context of words used on those pages better. One of those involves what they refer to as semantic frames. A semantic frame is when you use language that's ideal for a certain situation, like a commercial transaction, somebody buying a car, selling a car. There's certain language that gets used in that conversation that better understands the context of words used. When you buy a mortgage, use the words points. Those mean a specific thing in transaction involving real estate, as opposed to a game of Yahtzee or something like that, Scrabble. Those points are very different. So if you understand the framework, you understand the context of words on a page. And it helps when Google, there are a lot of words that have multiple words in the web that have the same meaning and mean different things. You search for word Java, and you've got an island, you've got a drink like coffee, and you've got a programming language. And, it's just one word, 4 letters. It means lots of different things. It's true with one of the patents that Google talked about context and indexing and trying to understand was the word equestrian, or was the word horse. To an equestrian, it means an animal. To a carpenter, the word horse means a tool that you saw wood on. To a gymnast, a horse is an exercise implement that you perform gymnastics on, right? So lots of words mean multiple things, and understanding context makes you understand those things better and makes Google better at returning results that are relevant.
Yeah, and it make me think about something we discovered. There are many computer science laboratories that are working on how to identify a particular writing style of an author. So it's quite easy for a machine to understand if it's Bill that is writing a piece of content and if it's Francois who is writing a piece of content, because we have our own style. And regarding the category classification Google can make, there is a parallel where regarding the real estate industry, there are particular words, particular style of sentences that are used. And on the other hand, if you're talking about sports, there's a particular writing style as well. So I believe that it's quite easy for Google with their machine resources to map the web also with that kind of approach. What do you think?
I was an English undergraduate student. One of the things I studied was different styles of writers, and we were deconstructing literature and trying to understand why one writer's approach might be more effective than another writer's approach, and why some writers wrote one way, another writer wrote another. There is a patent from Google that talks about author scores, and they base part of that on how often those authors are cited by other people. And Google does a lot of stuff with language models, and they could, you have the Google Books Ngram Viewer, where they've scanned so many books, and you can see how popular the use is of certain phrases in the Ngram Viewer over the years, because they've analyzed and they've there's one quality score. I'm jumping around a lot, but there's one quality score patent from Google written by Navneet Panda, the guy the Panda update was named after, where he talks about using n-grams and building language models to understand the quality of web pages based upon how well they compare against other language models. Some machine learning there. We've got a data set of previously scored pages, and we're comparing new pages to those based upon the data from the sample set. So that's machine learning again, where they're using language models to determine quality. So something that's well written is going to get a higher score, and they can understand the styles of the authors based upon those language models.
Other examples of machine learning seem to occur in how Google manages entities, translation, and how it discovers what Syndic Firm has termed fraggles, or content fragments that Google uses independently, such as in feature snippets or AMP stories. Considering all of these examples, where do you think Google's machine learning is headed?
So I'm going to bring up this. There is another patent that talks about answer passages, where they said, okay, we're going to try to answer questions based upon textual passages we find on web pages. They updated that patent to say we're going to look at structured pages with textual passages and structured data that reinforces it. So there's that machine readable content that we put in schema on web pages. It's a reinforcement of the content that's in text on pages. And they're saying if we can grab information, the text from pages to provide as answers to questions, and then we could reinforce those answers with facts from schema from those pages. We can check on the facts the same way we do in Google Maps, where we're looking at consistency, name, address, phone number. The consistency provides some confidence level that an answer may be more likely to be correct. So if we have lots of pages that say so-and-so was born on this date, they are this type of, they're in this type of profession, so on, that type of stuff says this is more likely to be correct because we have higher confidence in the answer. So they're moving towards, and we're seeing that as Google introduces stuff like fact page schema and how-to schema, we're seeing a move towards having website owners build schema in that reflects what they might put in text on a web page.
And do you, regarding all of these moves from Google to better understand entities, we saw Bing speaking about opening their API so that can push content, and there have been a lot of talking in the SEO industry on our ability to push that kind of metadata also through an API and at some point in Google Search Console, because it's hard for search engines to understand. Crawling is a big thing, indexing is another thing, and interpreting all of these data collected is another thing. So it's really expensive to do. So there have been some move from search engines like Bing to open the API so that we can push content or add metadata and help them understand our web pages. Do you think this is something that Google might be doing at some point, or?
Okay, so when you mention API, that's just a delivery approach.
Yeah.
That's okay. So Google has taken other steps to try to understand content better on web pages. One of them, I mentioned the equestrian, the horse thing. And what they said with that one was, we might look at knowledge bases to understand these different meanings of something like a horse. And we might collect from those knowledge page definitions, context terms that show us which meaning is appropriate. And we might try to find those context terms on a page to see what the actual meaning is. So a page that's about a horse, an animal, we're going to see words like saddle and stirrups. And that lets us know they're talking about the animal. A page that's a horse that a carpenter uses, we're going to see words like saw and building. That helps us understand. Okay, so the context gets understood by the the understanding of those context terms. There's another approach to semantic learning, to understanding topics on pages under something that was introduced to Google in like 2004, which was phrase-based indexing. And phrase-based indexing patent came out, and about 20 or so other patents related to it came out, which sort of signals to me that it's something they've invested a lot of time and effort into. So one of those involves building an inverted index on the web of pages that phrases appear upon. So the phrases you're talking about are phrases that predict the meaning of a page. So you have a page about the White House in Washington, D.C. And if you see phrases like President of the United States or Secretary of State or Rose Garden interview, you know they're talking about the White House because there's a semantic topic. And it's also likely that they've indexed those words as appearing on pages about the White House because they frequently appear upon those pages.
Okay, thanks for that. But just coming back to my previous question, do you think that there might be an evolution on the upcoming years for webmasters to be able to push directly into Google their JSON-LD schema, for instance? Or do you think we'll keep things like crawling like it is today? Or will we have the ability to push some data on top of the crawling of Google through GSC, for instance?
So we're developing, search engines are developing things like Schema, but they're not providing all the examples of things that fit into Schema. Webmasters are doing that. Webmasters are helping build the knowledge graph with the search engines. So when Google provides a new addition to Schema like knows about, which is an attribute that can go with many different types of schema. You can have a plumber who knows about drain repair, but it's the webmasters who are building up that schema who are providing the knowledge that goes with those approaches. When you have a lawyer who knows about admiralty law or patent law, for instance, those are things that we're filling in as webmasters into a knowledge graph that the schema fits into. Schema is a word for a mental scheme. It's like the different aspects of a web page, the facts that you have on that page would fit into a database that schema is provided for. And as webmasters, we're filling in that schema. So it's a collaborative effort towards building knowledge about the world.
Yeah, thanks. And last question before we get into the quick questions. Based on your best guess as to how indexing and search work, do you think there are SEO practices that seem old-fashioned or ineffective nowadays?
I think so. I've just sometimes you see things and you wonder, people filling in alt text and repeating the same words over again in alt text, as if telling them that a photograph of a person, they need to put that person's name twice. That doesn't help a search engine understand it twice as well. As a matter of fact, it's quite possible a search engine could penalize them for that. There are old techniques that we see tool makers suggest using, like latent semantic indexing, which was developed in 1989 and was intended for small static databases that aren't the size of the web, that don't, every time you try to update or every time you try to use latent semantic indexing, it needs to be the latest version. If you keep on adding information to your corpus of stuff to be indexed, it needs to be run again. It's not very useful for the web. It's old technology. There's also TF-IDF, which is term frequency inverse document frequency, which works best if you have access to the corpus of information that's being indexed, like the World Wide Web. You want to know which are the most common words and which are rare words. But if somebody is only using the corpus of, say, the top 10 ranking pages for certain terms, and they're not using the whole corpus of the web, they don't know which words are the most common, which words are the rarest. So it's not necessarily going to be the most accurate. And yeah, that could make a difference.
Okay, is there anything else, or that is ineffective? We saw that optimizing your pagination with next or prev is no longer useful for Google. Is there any basic stuff people used to do that are ineffective today?
It's such a broad topic. We don't necessarily know things like pagination markup is no longer really something important to a search engine, because we have certain expectations of them. They should be able to understand when pages are in a series, and now they're saying they haven't been using pagination markup for a couple of years, and they can understand when pages are part of a series. It's like, okay, so what took so long? And how do we know how good or how bad you are at what you do?
Okay. Now let's get into the quick questions. So you need to answer them in 1 minute or less, and then we'll get onto the Q&A. So there are 4 quick questions. First one is, do you have a favorite technical trick?
Do I have a favorite technical trick? Yes, I do.
What is it?
Okay, I thought that was a quick answer. I like looking at frequently co-occurring words that rank highly for certain terms and making sure I use those on in content, on pages, in the body of a page, and in anchor text pointing from that page to other pages that are relevant and related. The anchor text, they're known as anchor hits, and they get treated by search engines. They're supposedly treated by search engines as if they're expert links. The text in content are known as body hits, and this is from phrase-based indexing, and the phrase-based indexing patent was updated about 2 years ago, and they said that it's no longer a re-ranking approach. They're not originally ranking pages based upon information retrieval score and PageRank score, but they're ranking pages based upon how many of these related terms appear on those pages, and if they One of the things about phrase-based indexing is if too many related terms appear on the page beyond some statistical probability, they might consider that spam. So if somebody's scraping lots of pages and putting the content of those pages on one page, they've got a lot of those phrases, but they've likely got a statistical improbability going on.
So working on co-occurrency is at your own risk if you push the button too hard.
Yeah, but
Okay.
you know, it fits well with the way I do keyword research. It's like I'll look at other pages on the same topic that I'm trying to optimize the page for, and I'll try to find out what words are important in those other pages, and I'll include them on a spreadsheet. And they may be words that I try to use in that page, even though I'm not trying to rank for those words, because they help build content that's relevant to the terms I'm trying to use.
Okay, next question. A least favorite technical question that you often get asked. Don't say a name. Don't say a name.
I mentioned earlier I don't like seeing people suggesting the use of latent semantic indexing,
Yeah.
often because what they're really suggesting has nothing to do with the technology of latent semantic indexing. They're often suggesting adding synonyms to pages or related content that's related semantically. And I mentioned how Google's phrase-based indexing has created an inverted index of phrases that appear on pages, and how knowledge bases sometimes can provide context terms like the saddles and stirrups on a page about a horse. So there are some terms and some sources that you can go to find words that it might be helpful to include on your page. If you're looking for frequently co-occurring words on other pages ranking highly for the same term, look in those other pages that rank highly for those terms. For the pages, for the related terms that you might want to include in your page. But like I said, there are sources, so just don't assume I'm writing about this, I'm going to include words that mean the same thing. Because sometimes things that seem like they're synonyms aren't. Like the word car. You can have a railroad car is not the same as a Chevrolet. They're very different types of cars.
Okay. Next question. Do you have a favorite Google bot?
Do I have a favorite Google bot? No, I can't say I do. You
love all of them.
all of them. I've been using the new version of Google Search Console with the submission tool. And I'm finding pages getting indexed really quickly using that. It's like I'll update a title on a page and then submit it using Google Search Console and do a search for that term, and within a minute, and it's updated already.
Okay. Last quick question. Do you have a favorite planet?
I'm sort of prone to favor Earth a lot. And I just enjoyed watching a Netflix show called The Wandering Earth, which is based on a short story by a Chinese science fiction writer, where they decide that they can no longer keep the Earth near our sun. Our sun is becoming, it's going to die, and they want to move it to a new sun. So they add rockets to our Earth, and they burrow down underground, living underground, and they take off, and they have a difficulty when they try to pass Jupiter because its gravitational pull is so strong.
Mhm.
But it's an interesting, well done movie, and it's like one of the highest grossing movies of all times. Uh,
I'll definitely look forward to watching it. Thanks, Bill. We're gonna take a few questions from the audience. First question comes from Callum Scott. He says, thanks for doing this webinar, very interesting. What schema markup would you like to see or expect to see webmasters and webmasters and search try to add in the future? So what schema markup would you like or to see or expect to see for a search engine to add them in the future? Do you have think about any?
I have one that's really personal. I tend to write a lot about patents, so I want to see something that captures patents better than they are right now. There are a lot of unique features to patents, like classes of patents, what they're intended to address, and I can see using main entity of page as a patent name, but I want to be able to capture the classifications of those patents because I know Google will allow you to do a custom search engine based upon schema markup now. And I'd like to be able to provide schema markup search where people can ask to see patents that cover certain categories or classifications.
Okay. We have a lot of questions about. Let me turn this way. In the future, do you think that SEO will become like answer engine optimization instead of search engine optimization? What's your thoughts about this?
I think that it's always sort of been answer optimization. Uh, Google came out with the dictionary lookup or dictionary feature in like 2004. So people could search for the meanings of words for the last 15 years. I mean, that hasn't changed. There was a Google blog post called Just the Facts Fast in 2005 where they showed the first sort of featured snippet or direct answer. Uh,
Mhm.
and they weren't looking for an answer that was satisfied by 10 blue links. They wanted a passage of text answering the question. So that's been around for 15 years too.
Mhm.
So we're not necessarily going through an evolution. Uh, the second patent or provisional patent I've seen from Google is one from Sergey Brin, where he introduced an algorithm that helped understand facts and relationships between facts better. His patent included 5 books, and the titles of the books, the publishers, what uh, uh, the authors, and so on. And the way this was supposed to work was a Google bot would crawl the web, find these 5 books on page and or on a website. Wikipedia, Googlebot is the web crawler software that collects documents from the web to build a searchable index for the Google search engine. Okay, there we go. Google kicked in.
They're listening to us.
What's that?
They're listening to us.
They are. So, uh, there are things like audio watermarks. Google has patented, and they're supposed to be ultra high frequency. Your phone can hear them, but you can't. Your dog can hear them too. Uh, so a commercial may play on TV, and it may have one of these audio watermarks. And Google, some providers, there are a few places that have patents on these things, and they said they could listen in and they could understand that you've seen this commercial, and then they can track what you do based upon a knowledge that you're possibly interested in what this commercial was about. So based on an audio watermark, which is really nothing we ever envisioned in SEO before, but it's a new marketing tool. It's been around for at least 5 years.
Okay, interesting. Thanks a lot. I'm very sorry we're running out of time, so we won't take any more questions because it's been 45 minutes. So I was very, very pleased to have you, Bill, on this webinar. Thanks for joining us. It was a real pleasure.
It is a pleasure too. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot, folks, for listening to us. Be assured to watch our next episode for a new perspective on duplicated content. It's with our guest, Alexis Sanders. So feel free to join us on June 24th. And register for this final episode. And of course, you can still try our technical SEO data platform. There's a free trial, so feel free to use it and send us your feedback. Thanks again, Bill. See you at which conference will we have the chance to see you over the next months?
I'm going to be at PubCon, and then I'm going to be at SMLX Milan.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, well then, so if you want to catch up with Bill, let's go to PubCon or SMLX. Okay, thanks, Bill. Have a nice day.
Oh, you too. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.